Chapter 1 Aftermath. The air was thick with the acrid scent of smoke and burned metal, a stark testament to the violence that had swept across the battlefield just hours before. Dawn's early light cast long shadows over the churned earth, illuminating the wreckage of what had been a formidable B-52, now a charred skeleton resting uneasily on foreign soil. The landscape was a mosaic of destruction. Craters pocked the ground like the surface of some desolate moon, and the remnants of lesser machines lay scattered, twisted, and broken. Amidst this desolation, the survivors of the B-52 crew gathered. Their number was small, a mere handful compared to the bustling life that had filled the bomber's interior before their mission. They sat or stood in silence, their gazes lost in the distance or fixed on the ground, each lost in their own labyrinth of thoughts and memories. The battle had stripped them of the immediacy of their mission, leaving behind only the raw essence of survival and the lingering echoes of their close brush with oblivion. Their uniforms bore the scars of their ordeal's singed edges, smears of grease and blood, and the heavy dust of the battlefield, embedding the story of their survival into the very fabric. Faces, too, were marked, with soot, with fatigue, and with the invisible yet indelible impressions of war. Eyes that had witnessed the horror of battle now looked upon the aftermath, reflecting a myriad of emotions: relief at being alive, sorrow for what had been lost, and the haunting question of why they had been spared when so many had not. As they awaited rescue, the silence between them was a comfortable one, born of shared experience and mutual respect. There was no need for words. Each knew the other's thoughts as surely as they knew their own. They were bound together not just by duty, but by the unspoken bond of those who have faced death together and emerged on the other side. Occasionally, one would stand, stretching limbs stiff from injury or tension, and walk a few paces, eyes scanning the horizon for the first signs of their rescuers. But always they would return to the group, to the silent solidarity that offered more comfort than words ever could. In these moments, the true cost of war was laid bare, not in the machinery lost or the strategic objectives achieved, but in the wearied souls of those who fought. The aftermath was not just the physical destruction that surrounded them, but the internal landscapes forever altered by the day's events. And as they waited, the rising sun not only heralded the dawn of a new day, but also the beginning of their journey through the memories and the scars they would carry forward. Chapter 2 Rescue. As the dawn's light began to assert itself more firmly over the battlefield, it brought not only visibility, but also the distant sound of salvation, the rumble of engines and the crunch of gravel under tire. The survivors, their gazes turned towards the horizon, watched as a convoy of Allied vehicles emerged from the mist, a tangible sign of hope cutting through the morning's solemn quietude. The convoy, a mix of medical jeeps and armored transport, approached with a purposeful speed, stirring up clouds of dust that hung in the air like specters of the night's turmoil. As they halted near the wreckage, doors swung open and a flurry of activity ensued. Soldiers and medics, their faces etched with the fatigue of continuous battle yet alight with the resolve to aid their comrades, disembarked with swift efficiency. One of the medics, a young nurse with eyes that seemed too wise for her years, was the first to reach the crew. Her presence offered an immediate sense of comfort. Her uniform, though marked by the same war, somehow promised safety. She moved among the survivors with a gentle, practiced care, assessing injuries with a soft word here, a reassuring nod there, her kit at the ready to provide immediate relief. The crew, for their part, found their tension easing at the sight of their rescuers. Words of gratitude were exchanged, brief and heartfelt, amidst the clinical questions and responses about injuries and conditions. A sense of camaraderie began to form, not just from shared nationality, but from the mutual understanding of those who have faced the visceral reality of war. The captain of the rescue team, a seasoned officer with a demeanor as solid as the tank he had arrived in, approached the crew's senior officer. Their handshake was firm, an unspoken acknowledgment of respect and relief between two soldiers who knew the cost of the conflict all too well. He assured the crew that they were now under his protection, promising swift passage back to the safety of their base. As the survivors boarded the vehicles, each found a moment to glance back at the ruins of their B-52. It was a silent farewell to a chapter of their lives, one marked by horror and heroism in equal measure. Yet, as the convoy began its journey away from the battlefield, the focus shifted from what was left behind to the road ahead. There was healing to be done, both of the body and the spirit, and while the war raged on beyond the horizon, for now they were safe. The dynamics within the group, now a blend of crew and rescuers, took on a new dimension as the convoy moved. Stories began to be shared. The beginnings of laughter broke through the weight of recent events, and amidst the shared looks and nods, there was an unspoken promise. to carry each other through whatever came next. Chapter 3. The Cost Calculated. As the convoy wound its way back to the safety of the base, the landscape around them began to shift from the immediate reminders of conflict to the more mundane scenes of a country at war. Inside one of the transports, the rescued crew of the B-52 found themselves in a rare moment of calm, the adrenaline of survival ebbing away, replaced by the introspection that often follows the cessation of danger. It was in this atmosphere that a conversation began, almost hesitantly at first, about the B-52 they had lost. The question was posed by the navigator, a man known for his precision and attention to detail. He wondered aloud about the cost of the aircraft, not just in terms of the dollars spent to build it, but in the broader context of the war effort. The question seemed to hang in the air, inviting responses. The pilot, a seasoned officer with years of service under his belt, was the first to respond. He spoke of the B-52 in terms not just of metal and machinery, but of the strategic advantage it provided. His perspective was one of practicality, acknowledging the loss but emphasizing the role of such aircraft in the overarching strategy of the war. The bombardier, younger and more idealistic, struggled with the question. For him, the aircraft had been a tangible symbol of their mission's potential for success. He quantified the loss in the opportunities missed, the targets not hit, and the enemy positions that remained intact. His was a perspective of potential, of what could have been. The conversation then turned to the gunner, a quiet individual who had seen too much but spoke too little. He measured the cost in the human toll, the camaraderie developed over countless missions, now missing a vital piece. His input shifted the dialogue from the material to the emotional, a reminder that not all costs can be calculated in monetary terms. As the transport rumbled on, the engineer joined in, offering a technical breakdown of the B-52's value. He spoke of the hours spent on maintenance, the parts that were now irreplaceable, and the effort it would take to bring another bomber to operational status. His was a perspective grounded in the reality of war's logistics. Finally, the conversation encompassed the views of the medic who had been with them since their rescue. She had seen the aftermath of the aircraft's loss and the injuries she treated and the psychological scars she attempted to soothe. To her, the cost was measured in the healing that would be required, both physical and mental. This multifaceted conversation, while touching on the tangible aspects of loss, gradually revealed the deeper connections each crew member had to their mission, their aircraft, and each other. It was a reflection not just on the cost of the B-52 in monetary terms, but on the broader implications of its loss for the crew, the mission, and the war effort itself. As the base came into view, the conversation dwindled, leaving behind a shared understanding. The cost of the B-52, they realized, was far more complex than a simple dollar amount. It encompassed strategy, potential, camaraderie, effort, and recovery elements not easily quantified, but deeply felt by those who had come to rely on the aircraft as a symbol of their collective endeavor. Chapter 4. The Colonel's Laugh. The rumbling cadence of the transport vehicle served as a steady backdrop to the crew's solemn reflections when a sudden, hearty laugh cut through the air like a bright flare in the night. It came from the colonel, a figure both respected and slightly enigmatic, who until now had observed the crew's conversation with an attentive silence. His laugh, rich and infused with an underlying warmth, immediately drew the crew's attention, shifting the atmosphere from one of heavy introspection to a more open, intrigued curiosity. The colonel, well seasoned by the trials of war and the complex tapestry of command, wore his years of service not as a burden, but as a badge of deep understanding and resilience. His eyes, which had seen the unfolding of many such discussions, sparkled with a mix of amusement and wisdom as he regarded the crew. His presence, imposing yet reassuring, filled the confined space of the transport vehicle, bridging the gap between the rank and file and the echelons of command with an ease born of genuine respect for the experiences of those under his charge. "Why the long faces?" he began, his voice a blend of jest and gravity. "You talk of loss and cost as if the ledger of war is tallied only in dollars and cents." The crew, taken aback by the colonel's intervention, found themselves momentarily speechless, their thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and anticipation. Here was a leader who had navigated the complexities of countless missions, whose strategic acumen was matched only by his capacity for unexpected levity. The colonel leaned forward, the light playing across his features, casting shadows that seemed to accentuate the lines of experience etched into his face. "Let me tell you about cost," he continued, his tone shifting to one of reflective seriousness. "The true cost of what we do, of what we sacrifice, isn't something you can easily quantify." His chuckle had faded, replaced by the compelling force of his words, drawing the crew into a circle of shared interest. They leaned in, their earlier uncertainties giving way to a collective eagerness to understand, to see beyond the numbers and the immediate toll of their losses. The colonel, sensing their readiness, delved into stories and insights that transcended the usual metrics of warfare, guiding them towards a broader perspective on their actions and their profound impact on the war's shifting tides. As the vehicle continued its journey, the space within seemed transformed. The colonel's laughter had not only broken the solemnity of their reflections, but had opened a gateway to a deeper understanding, challenging them to look beyond the superficial assessments of loss and to grasp the intricate dynamics of sacrifice, strategy, and the indomitable spirit of those who serve. Chapter 5 True Value. As the laughter subsided, the colonel's demeanor shifted towards the gravity of their shared purpose, seizing the moment to broaden the crew's understanding of their mission's true impact. The transport's steady hum provided a constant backdrop as he began to articulate the depth of their contribution to the war effort, transforming the space into a classroom of war's harsh realities and strategic nuances. Let's talk about value, he started, his voice carrying the weight of experience and the authority of his rank. Not in dollars or pounds, but in the currency of strategic advantage. He leaned slightly forward, capturing the crew's full attention. Your mission, he continued, went beyond the loss of one aircraft. You've dealt a significant blow to the enemy's capabilities. The colonel proceeded to detail the targets that had been neutralized by their mission. He spoke of ammunition depots that now lay in ruins, unable to supply enemy front lines, fighter aircraft grounded permanently, their hangars transformed into tombs of twisted metal, bridges that once carried reinforcements and supplies, now shattered, disrupting enemy movements for weeks, if not months. With each example, he painted a picture of the cascading effects of their actions. Every bomb dropped, every target hit, ripples through the enemy's plans. You've sown chaos in their ranks, delayed their operations, and forced them to allocate resources to defend and rebuild what was lost. The crew, listening intently, began to absorb the magnitude of their mission. The bombardier, reflecting on the colonel's words, realized the broader scope of their impact, beyond the immediate target. The navigator, piecing together the strategic map in his mind, saw the disrupted supply lines and the potential shifts in enemy deployment. The engineer, usually focused on the mechanics of warfare, found a new appreciation for the tactical outcomes of their technical effort. And the gunner, whose role often felt the most direct and immediate, understood his contributions within a larger strategy of attrition and psychological warfare. As the colonel concluded his elaboration, the crew's perception of their mission transformed. The conversation that began with an attempt to quantify their loss in monetary terms had evolved into a profound recognition of their actions' strategic value. It was a realization that their sacrifice, while painful, played a pivotal role in the broader theater of war, contributing to the eventual goal of victory. The chapter closed with the crew in a reflective state, their thoughts no longer confined to the confines of their lost B-52, but expanded to the vast, interconnected web of war. They understood that the true value of their mission lay not in the metal and machinery lost, but in the significant strategic advantage gained, a lesson imparted by the colonel's timely intervention and wisdom. Chapter 6 Realization. The colonel's words, like a key turning in a lock, opened new doors of understanding for the crew. As the transport vehicle hummed along, a palpable shift occurred within its confines. The focus of their reflections moved from the tangible, measured in the monetary cost of their lost B-52, to the intangible, yet infinitely more significant, realm of their true contribution to the war effort. This shift was not merely cognitive, it was deeply emotional, resonating with each crew member's core beliefs about duty, sacrifice, and the true cost of war. The pilot, whose hands had steered their now lost aircraft through countless missions, found a new sense of peace in the realization that their efforts had indeed made a difference. The weight of loss gave way to a solid conviction that every mission, every risk taken, served a purpose far greater than the immediate outcome. His gaze, once clouded with the shadow of doubt, now shone with a renewed sense of purpose. The navigator, whose maps and calculations had always been about precision and numbers, began to see beyond the grid lines and coordinates. The colonel's strategic breakdown of their impact allowed him to appreciate the broader strokes of their actions, their part in the grand design of the war. His role, once confined to the cockpit, now extended into the very heart of the enemy's plans, disrupting and delaying them. The bombardier, who had struggled with the abstract concept of value, now found clarity. Each target they had hit, each mission flown, was a testament to their unwavering commitment to the cause. The realization that their actions had tangible effects on the war's trajectory brought a profound sense of accomplishment and a deeper understanding of sacrifice not as a loss, but as a necessary contribution to a greater good. The gunner and the engineer, too, found solace in the colonel's words. The gunner, whose direct engagement with the enemy had often felt like a mere drop in the ocean, now saw the ripples those drops created. And the engineer, whose hands had maintained the integrity of their flying fortress, understood that each bolt tightened, each wire secured, played a critical role in the larger battle. This chapter of realization was not just about coming to terms with the loss of their aircraft. It was about understanding the broader implications of their service. The colonel's narrative bridged the gap between individual roles and collective impact, painting a picture of a mosaic where each piece, no matter how small, was crucial to the overall victory. As the journey continued, the crew sat in a contemplative silence, each member wrestling with these new insights. The emotional and philosophical exploration of sacrifice and value had deepened their connection to the war and to each other. They were no longer just a crew. They were integral parts of a much larger effort, each with a vital role to play in the fight for freedom. The realization that their sacrifices had value beyond measure imbued them with a profound sense of pride and a renewed dedication to their mission. Chapter 7. The Journey Home. As the transport vehicle made its way across the changing landscape, the journey back to base became a poignant reflection of the crew's internal voyage. The world outside the windows transitioned from the scarred battlefields to areas untouched by the war's direct impact, mirroring the crew's shift from the immediate aftermath of loss to a broader perspective on their roles within the larger conflict. The passing scenery, a mosaic of devastated areas giving way to fields yet to feel the war's touch, offered a silent commentary on the nature of conflict, areas of life and growth juxtaposed with zones of destruction and despair. This duality resonated deeply with the crew, each member contemplating the dual nature of their own experiences, how moments of intense struggle and loss were counterbalanced by acts of bravery, unity, and significant contribution to the war effort. Conversations within the vehicle became less about recounting past events and more about the implications of their actions. Discussions turned philosophical, pondering the nature of war, the cost of freedom, and the indelible mark left on those who serve. These dialogues, though diverse in focus, were united by a common thread, a search for meaning in the midst of chaos, a desire to understand the true essence of their sacrifice. As the vehicle approached the base, the landscape became more familiar, signifying not just a return to a physical location, but also a return to a sense of self that had been transformed by the journey. The sight of the base, a symbol of relative safety and normalcy, prompted reflections on what it meant to come home not just in a geographical sense, but also in terms of returning to a shared humanity, to a community that, while untouched by the specifics of their experience, was inherently connected by the shared goal of ending the conflict. The final leg of their journey was marked by a quiet resolve. The crew, now bonded not just by shared experiences, but also by a collective understanding of those experiences' deeper implications, looked forward to rejoining the larger community at the base. They were united in their recognition that, while the war continued beyond the base's confines, their contributions, both seen and unseen, were pivotal to the collective effort. The chapter closes as the vehicle crosses the threshold into the base, the physical return home paralleling the crew's mental and emotional journey. They had traversed landscapes both external and internal, emerging with a deeper understanding of their experiences, their actions, and the ongoing war. This journey, while a small chapter in the larger saga of the conflict, encapsulated the personal transformations that are the unseen casualties and triumphs of war. Chapter 8. Reflections. The base, a hive of activity and the heart of ongoing operations, welcomed the crew back with a familiar blend of routine and urgency. Yet, for those who had journeyed both physically and emotionally from the battlefield back to this nexus of war effort, the return felt different. There was a sense of having crossed an invisible threshold, one that marked a transition from soldiers simply executing orders to warriors cognizant of the deeper currents shaping their destiny. In the relative calm of their barracks, away from the immediate demands of duty, the crew found themselves in a reflective state. The conversations that had begun in the confines of the transport vehicle continued, but with a more introspective tone. They discussed their roles within the grand tapestry of the war, pondering the ripples each action created in the larger scheme. This was a time of introspection, of looking inward to understand the outward impact of their sacrifices. The pilot, his leadership role magnified by the recent experiences, spoke of the responsibility they bore, not just to their immediate comrades, but to the cause itself. The navigator, with his maps and charts, mused on the paths they had taken and the ones yet to be charted, seeing them as metaphors for their personal journeys. The bombardier and the gunner, often focused on the targets ahead, now contemplated the broader implications of their missions, understanding that each sortie was a chapter in a story much larger than any individual crew or aircraft. The engineer, who kept their B-52 flying, reflected on the importance of maintenance, not just of machinery but of spirit and resolve. And the medic, witness to the physical and emotional toll of their endeavors, spoke of healing, emphasizing the need to mend not only the body but also the soul. This period of reflection brought the crew closer, their bonds strengthened by shared insights and mutual understanding. It was a necessary respite, a moment to gather strength and to recalibrate their inner compasses. They emerged from this phase not just as members of a crew, but as parts of a larger collective conscience, each understanding their place in the continuum of sacrifice and service. As they prepared for future missions, there was a palpable change in their demeanor. The weight of their experiences had not lessened, but their capacity to bear it had grown. They faced the prospect of upcoming challenges with a renewed sense of purpose and a clearer understanding of the stakes involved. Their reflections had provided them not just with answers, but with the right questions to ask, guiding their steps as they moved forward. The chapter closes with the crew standing together, looking out at the runway where their next aircraft awaited. It was a moment of quiet determination, a collective acknowledgement of the journey ahead. They were ready, armed not just with weapons, but with a profound understanding of their roles in the war and the meaning of their sacrifices. Hash Chapter 9 Forward. As dawn broke over the base, casting a soft golden light on the hangars and runways, the crew of the B-52 gathered once more, this time with their gazes firmly set on the horizon. The air was crisp, filled with the promise of a new day, mirroring the crew's renewed resolve and the clarity of their purpose. They stood together, not just as a team, but as a symbol of resilience, ready to embrace the challenges that lay ahead with the wisdom gleaned from their past experiences. The lessons of their recent journey of loss, reflection, and realization had forged them not only into more seasoned soldiers, but into deeper, more thoughtful individuals. They understood now more than ever the complex tapestry of war, where each thread, each action, contributed to the larger picture. They were more than their roles. They were crucial elements in the fight for freedom, with a clear vision of their contributions and the stakes for which they fought. Preparation for future missions took on a new dimension. It was not just about strategy and tactics, but about understanding the impact of their actions, about moving forward with intention and awareness. The discussions that had begun in the quiet moments of reflection continued as they checked their equipment and reviewed their plans. Every step was taken with a mindfulness born of their recent introspections, every decision informed by a deeper understanding of their part in the larger struggle. The forward-looking tone was not just about optimism, but about a grounded determination. They were under no illusions about the challenges and sacrifices that awaited them, but they faced these realities with a strength and a unity that had been tempered in the fires of their shared experiences. Their resolve was a beacon, not just for each other, but for the rest of the base, a testament to the power of reflection and the importance of moving forward with purpose. As the crew boarded their aircraft, their silhouettes against the morning light were a powerful image of readiness and anticipation. They carried with them not just the hopes of their comrades, but the weight of their responsibilities, buoyed by the belief in their mission and in each other. The chapter and the story concluded with the aircraft taking to the skies, a symbol of their unyielding spirit and the continuation of their journey, ever forward, ever upward. In this moment of departure, the essence of their journey was encapsulated not an end, but a beginning, a continuous push towards achieving their objectives, informed by the past, but always looking towards the future. The story of the crew, though individual in its chapters, was universal in its themes of sacrifice, growth, and the unbreakable will to persevere, setting the stage for their next chapter in the annals of the war.